and only DNVR. Two goes out to Zach, Mace, RK, and the bar. Three for Mr. B in that old trophy case. Number four we're still waiting for, well, bring on the chase. Out on the field at Mile High, Broncos win is our desire. Coupled with a break, brew and a friend, bleed orange and blue to the bitter end. Come and join us, DNVR. We are DNVR.
We are DNVR, and we are live from Studio A here at the DNVR Bar, where it was absolutely popping from morning to night last night at the DNVR Bar watching March Madness. We are open right now. You can probably hear the music in the background, so come on down, watch you some March Madness. And today the A in Studio A stands for AFC West, the greatest division in football history.
Ooh, maybe.
That's what we're talking about today, but first I want to give a shout out to MSU Denver, msudenver.edu/online. You can go to MSU Denver and check out all they have to offer at msudenver.edu/online. 75 plus online and hybrid programs, 450 total classes. Something for everyone over at MSU Denver, so check them out.
My boys, the vibes are incredible today, and what a fun pod we have as we've got basketball in the background as the bar is hopping already. Got the vibes feeling good, and man, this is one of the best weekends in sports.
Yeah, no three-ring circus today. A little PSA there. Because the Broncos have a lot going on, and we don't know what time they have a lot going on.
We gotta be on our toes, dancing around.
Yeah, we have to be mobile and agile.
Are you talking about Russ?
Yes, I am talking about Russ. Everything I only talk about Russ.
Yeah.
The
The DNVR Russ Broncos podcast.
As I said to someone on Twitter who was like, I was like dunking on the Chargers, and they were like, I see you're mad about what the Chargers are doing, and I was like, bro, the Broncos have Russell Wilson. I literally can't be mad about anything ever.
It's so true. It's so true. And speaking of three-ring circus, don't worry. We're still going to have an awesome show next week with our friend Romy Bean.
Yeah, so Romy will be on next Friday, and we will get to that. All right. So, best football division ever. There's only one person I can throw this to first. Andrew Mason.
On paper, yes.
Okay.
Yes. And again, but here's the thing. There's going to be one dud in this game of AFC West Mystery Date.
Yes.
There's going to be one of these teams that ends the season very disappointed, sitting there at 7-10, 8-9, 9-8.
I wonder what team that could be.
Well, the thing is, it could be anybody.
It could.
I mean, yes, it could be the Chiefs. Believe it or not.
It could. It could be there's always one.
Yeah, there's always one. There's always one. I mean, I think to the comparisons that I make here, they're actually to like other sports. It's like to SEC football, to like the Big East when it was like a 14-team Colossus, or the ACC in basketball in the 2010s. Like, you'd have, say, 7 ranked teams in those conferences, and then one of them would go like 14-19, just because they're so good, it's so deep, someone is just going to be a bust. So that's why I would say, like, there are people saying, 4 teams in the playoffs. That is extremely unlikely, because the only way that likely happens is if you see the entire division, say, sweep the NFC West and sweep the AFC South. I think sweeping the AFC South is possible. I'm not sure about sweeping the NFC West.
I don't think there's a dud. I disagree with both of you.
4 playoff teams?
Potentially, or a team that misses at 10-6 or 10-7 or something like that. I think these are all legit teams. Now, of course, there can be a dud, but I don't see it. And, of course, the team that would be the dud, I think the obvious one, is the Las Vegas Raiders.
Oh, no.
And no.
The Chargers.
Oh, you're saying the Chargers.
Because they're going to charge it up?
Give me a
just like
break.
they did last year.
And they were still a winning team, though.
Yes, and they got beat by the Raiders to miss the playoffs.
Yeah, and the other thing that happens is you have other divisions that aren't as rigorous. And let's put it this way: the Patriots would be fifth if you put them among the AFC West. 4 AFC West teams plus the Patriots. They're the fifth best team. But they get a couple of games against the New York Jets, for example. You go to the AFC South. Let's say that the Colts trade for Matt Ryan out of all this, that the dominoes fall. Deshaun Watson goes to Atlanta. Matt Ryan goes to Indianapolis. Then all of a sudden you could see both the Colts and the Titans being like 11-6, 10-7, and they steal a playoff spot from one of them, who's a wild card, takes a playoff spot from the fourth place team in the AFC West.
Well, and that's why I'm not saying that that's guaranteed all 4 playoff teams come from the AFC West because of that, because the AFC West is going to eat themselves alive.
Yeah.
And that's why I don't think anymore that the AFC West is going to have the number 1 overall seed.
No.
Because they're just going to, cannibalize themselves. But I don't think you're a dud if you go 10-7 and miss the playoffs because there was another team that was, because 2 other AFC West teams or 3 other AFC West teams had a better record, and then there was a Patriots or anything. So that's not a dud in my mind. A dud is a losing team. I don't think there's a losing team in this division. And why I think the dud would, and I think you guys are crazy for sleeping on the Chargers.
Yeah, people have been saying that for like 50 years.
Well, not me.
And they are.
I'm just saying
they truly are on the come up.
They have to prove. I'm just saying. I don't think they're going to be the dud. I don't think they're going to be the fourth place team, but they do have that history.
The reason the Raiders would be the dud is because of Josh McDaniels. And speaking of bad history, this isn't history that's like, no one's in the organization anymore. Josh McDaniels is the bad history that's now leading that organization. Unfortunately, I think Josh McDaniels is going to have learned a lot from his past. I think he's going to be better. Josh McDaniels, without a doubt, is going to be a fantastic offensive mind. But if he at all reverts back to the way he was with the Broncos, he's going to tear that organization apart. And those big names that they have, Chandler Jones, Davante Adams, Derek Carr's not going to be able to salvage it all when those guys are going crazy because Josh McDaniels is going crazy. Unfortunately, I don't think that's the way it's going to go. I think Josh McDaniels is going to be a good enough head coach and a great offensive mind where, again, no duds. And you know what? When I think of the AFC West guys, it's scary as hell. It's fun as hell. It's exciting. It makes me nervous. It makes me sad. It makes me happy. I mean, it brings out all the emotions. And that's what's going to make this year extra fun on top of Russ.
Yeah. Go ahead, Mace.
Well, I mean, it's funny with McDaniels. I think one reason why he will probably do better is he doesn't have all the power in his hands. Dave Ziegler being there, I think, is going to put a check on him. And I mean, we've kind of joked, hey, the Patriots way has, worked so well elsewhere. Sarcastically speaking, now you look at this Raiders team, and as long as Josh doesn't do the stuff of alienating people, which is possible, but if he has learned from 12 years ago, and I believe he has, then this is going to work. Maybe not like Belichick with his second chance in New England, but it's going to work to have them be a good team.
This is so interesting, and I wasn't necessarily planning on going through it this way, but I started thinking about this as we're discussing. Think of all the things that are up for grabs. Obviously, we're talking about best team. Best team is up for grabs.
Yep.
Best quarterback is up for grabs, and it's going to be a really good competition.
Yep.
Best quarterback wide receiver duo is up for grabs. Now, I think Derek Carr, by a really tough metric, is the worst quarterback in the AFC West. He now has probably the best wide receiver in the AFC West.
He just got better. The worst team in the Raiders and the worst quarterback in the Raiders just got significantly better.
Yep. So that's up for grabs. Best defense is up for grabs, and I think this is where the Broncos should really be trying to win, because that's the one where I think they're closest. You go on down. Best coach, that's probably going to Andy Reid. But second best coach is wide open for grabs.
Yep.
So it's like it's just so crazy. You can go through everything, and there's not really a definitive winner in most areas.
Yeah, and that's what's absolutely good. You can go best offensive talent. How about the conversation, which we'll get into at some point in this offseason? Best wide receiving group. best running back. I mean, there are legitimate competitions everywhere. And you know what? Someone in the comments section already said, give this a nickname. It's AFC Best, because there is no doubt. I mean, we're talking about the AFC West being a Pro Bowl team on its own, and then maybe you throw, I don't know, Lamar Jackson in, and boom, there's the team. Joe Burrow, throw him in. Boom, there's the AFC West Pro Bowl team.
You know, it's funny, like, because I was thinking about the pass catching compliments as a whole after what the Raiders did yesterday, and that's where it kind of comes into, who has the best QB receiver combo. But if you take the pass catching compliments, receivers plus tight ends, I mean, where do the Broncos rank here? And they've invested a hell of a lot,
probably third
in the receiver position, and they're third at best. They're third. I mean, I right now I would take, in terms of the balance of what the Raiders have, I would take the Raiders today.
Davante Adams, Darren Waller, and Hunter Renfrow.
You've literally got arguably the best outside receiver. You've got, at worst, a top 3 or 4 tight end.
Yeah.
And you have the best slot.
And so then with the Chiefs, you have the most dangerous receiver in the NFL, as I would call him. Yep. In more ways than one. The best tight end.
He's still tight end one league wide, yes.
He's the most productive tight end, without a doubt.
He took a step back last year, I thought, but still.
Yeah.
Still 1,000
and
yards.
then whoever you throw in third, Mecole Hardman.
Yeah. But their 1-2 is...
Right, their 1-2 is as good as anyone.
Yep.
So then I probably put the Broncos after that.
They have to be. And the good thing about it is they're not where the Chargers are, where the Chargers are still really good, but I think there is a step back from the Chargers. The Broncos are right there, but I think they are kind of the clear number 3, but they have a chance to work their way up to 2, to work their way up to 1, and the Broncos' weapons haven't had any favors with the quarterback. Now they get that. That's why they can move up. Because Courtland Sutton, he can be that guy. He can be a top 10 guy. Jerry Jeudy can be a top 10 guy. Losing Noah Fant does hurt, but in terms of a receiving weapon, Alberto is right there. Now, Alberto certainly has to prove himself before he's anywhere in the conversation of a Darren Waller, of a Travis Kelce. But in terms of talent, he can help the Broncos be in that conversation.
You maybe could say the best wide receiver, just pure wide receiver group is the Broncos. But that doesn't really matter. How often are they going to be going 4 or 5 wide?
Yeah.
I don't know.
And don't sleep on the Chargers with Mike Williams and Keenan Allen as well.
Totally. It's nothing to
I think the Broncos might be 4th. It's close because right now the Chargers, they're kind of in flux at tight end. Yeah. If you threw that in there, but I think right now the Broncos could be.
It'll be really interesting to see what packages the Broncos use, because like I said, if you're talking about going 4 wide and you put out Courtland Sutton, Tim Patrick, Jerry Jeudy, and KJ Hamler, that sounds terrifying for defenses. But we're also talking about a West Coast offense that's going to use a fullback.
Right.
So it's like, how often can you really do that? How often do you really want to do that? That is the puzzle for Nathaniel Hackett and Justin Outen to solve, and I think it's a really fun one. And like, you can go Andrew Beck, Eric Tomlinson, Albert O, and Courtland Sutton, and that still has some fear. You still put some fear in people.
Well, and what I love about that is just how different this offense can be. Yeah. You can go 4 wide, and then let's say your 5th guy out there, you go 5 wide, and Albert O's your 5th guy. And then the very next play, you bring in 265 blocking tight end. You bring in a fullback in Andrew Beck, and then you have Javonte Williams, who is just the complete opposite of KJ Hamler in terms of taking the top off the defense. If you aren't able to switch quickly enough on defense, or you're not prepared to handle both of those things on defense in terms of an incredibly good deep threat, and then also a mauler that's not who you can't tackle, as Russ said. Good luck.
Yeah, and I think it was Dan Orlovsky on ESPN the other day said he puts the Broncos offense as the number 1 offense in the AFC West right now because he believes they're going to be the most multiple offense, meaning, obviously the Chiefs have issues with falling too in love with the passing game. The Chargers definitely have issues with falling too in love with the passing game. The Raiders are going to be right there. Now, this was before they traded for Davante Adams, so maybe he's going to change his mind because, they also have Josh Jacobs. But his whole thing was the amount of pressure the Broncos are going to be able to put on defenses by them just not knowing what you're doing. You could go heavy and force them to bring a safety down in the box and then throw it over the top to Courtland Sutton off those big bootlegs or those big, outside zone fakes. So this is, Nathaniel Hackett, has to be just living the dream right now in terms of scheming up this offense. You can go with the true West Coast formula, but you can also spread it out. You can also go RPO. You can also go zone read with Russell Wilson. There's nothing that you can't do on offense.
You know
what does
what
Russ want to do, though?
He wants to throw
Wants
the
to
ball
cook.
and he wants to throw deep.
That's the thing. Russ wants to cook. So I think you can be balanced, but you don't want it to look like Seattle where it's run first.
No, you're
Because
not
that's not what he's coming here for.
And when you think about the offense
Yeah.
being balanced, and when you think about having these multiple approaches, that is something that cannot leave Nathaniel Hackett's mind. Is still got to make Russ happy.
Give me 60-40.
That's
60-40
great.
pass to run.
That's great. Beautiful.
Yeah.
And then also that allows you to not have a dominant number 2 running back. You don't have to sign Melvin Gordon because you're not going to be handing the ball off to Javonte Williams only 25 times a game. And we know that's not really sustainable to do that for an entire season if you want him for 17 to 20 games in a year.
Someone in our YouTube comments yesterday when we were talking about what's the worst thing that George Payton has done, someone said, maybe that was 2 days ago.
Yeah.
Someone said the worst thing he's done is sign Mike Boone.
Wow.
And they were like, he didn't even play last year. He had like 7 carries or something. And I was just like, yeah, well, what did they pay him?
$2 million.
$2 million.
Yeah, exactly.
And they brought him in to be a special teamer, at least last year, with the idea of maybe him progressing into the number 2. But my whole thought was, because they were really hating that move.
Yeah.
And I was like, if that's the worst thing he's done.
Well, and kind of like I said, the worst move was not putting a bigger tender on Malik Reed. I really still disagree with that. But if that's the worst thing, we're talking
Right.
about losing a 3rd or 4th outside linebacker and not making the right decision on that. You're doing a pretty damn good job.
I figured someone was going to say the worst move was Kyle Fuller.
That's what I
In
said.
terms of the cost.
because he was giving Vic his guy, and so I am giving George the benefit of the doubt.
It's still ultimately it's his roster.
Yeah.
Yep.
It was
Well,
the worst.
The Bucks stopped somewhere. is
What
I'm
was it? 1 year, $10 million?
Yeah.
That's a lot of money for a guy who was benched.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's got to be the worst move. But I agree with you. That had to be a Vic Fangio pounding the table type of thing, and he agreed to it.
Got you some corners.
Got you your corners. Yep, exactly.
Broncos need some corners now.
They do need some corners now, and it is just crazy, like how good this division is. It's awesome, and this was all started by Patrick Mahomes. So hats off to him. He created an insane arms race in this division that is now what should be the best division in the history of the NFL. Because everyone looked around and was just like, we have no chance unless we have everything. And with the Broncos, in a different world, you could just say like, oh, we'll take a corner in the draft and add there, and maybe we'll get one of these late free agents, whatever, and just be fine. But now you're going into a division with Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce and Davante Adams and Darren Waller and Hunter Renfrow and Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. And it's just like no longer can you just kind of play it safe. Mm-hmm. You gotta go get someone.
Yeah, you have to. And the corners that are out there, that's why the teams are taking risks in the AFC West now. They're doing splash moves. You have to bring Bryce Callahan back. You have to, and it's a risk because you can't count on him for 17 games. But you know what Bryce Callahan is when he's on the field? He's a damn good football player, and he's a really good cornerback. And you want to talk about a guy that can go up against Hunter Renfrow and try to shut him down as much as someone can, a guy that you need against the Chiefs with all of their weapons, a guy that you could really benefit against the Chargers. You got to bring Bryce Callahan back. And now he's on the market 3 days now. No team signed him. His price tag's coming down. This is right about the time the Broncos signed him when they brought him from Chicago. You got to go get him.
What was that deal? Do you remember?
It was 21-3, and it was and actually I think it went down pretty close to a week into it. He was very much a second wave signee when he came here in 2019. Of course, to kind of expand upon the whole thing of second, third wave guys. I mean, it was. I think middle of the first, about 1 week in, they re-signed Kareem Jackson after cutting him last year. So the price tags are dropping in the next couple of days.
1 for 4.
For Bryce, sure, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And how about one for 2.5 for Kareem Jackson? 1 for 3 for Kareem Jackson. He said earlier this week that he has been in talks with the Broncos and that he would really be open to the idea of returning Boom. There you go. Spend $5 million, bring both of those guys back. Let's do it.
What do you think Chris Harris Jr. would cost on a one-year deal?
Oh,
What's he getting paid right now, or what was he getting paid?
I mean, that deal with the Chargers, I think that was in the $10 million a year range. So
Yikes.
his price
So
tag
probably 7 or 8.
He's probably I mean, he was hurt last year. I'd say the price tag for him is probably 4 to 5.
Okay.
I would say 4, and you know what? Do that too.
Yeah.
Do Bryce, do Chris. Now, I just think Chris may want to wait a little longer because he made that known earlier this offseason. But keep that money around. And we have some Broncos contracts that came out earlier this morning. Broncos only spent a couple $1 million on those lower level guys, so they can manipulate the cap in order to have this money. But the Broncos, every team in the AFC West is in it right now. You know, you saw it with the Rams last year, how they were in it for last year to win the whole thing. They made all those moves. You didn't see the Seahawks make those moves. You didn't see the Cardinals make those moves in the season. And you didn't see the 49ers make those moves. Now, every single team in this division is already making those moves. It is so much fun. When I get the notification that Davante Adams has been traded, that Chandler Jones has signed, I'm saying, not in the AFC West. Oh man, it's the AFC. You got to be kidding. You know, I get a little fired up, even though it's like terrifying at the same time because it's crazy. Every big move has been in the AFC West.
It's absolutely wild, and it just adds into my whole thing about, look, can we start the season tomorrow?
Yes.
Like, I'm so fired up. We're going to be scoreboard watching from week 1 through week 18.
Yep. And you know what's great is all of these teams are going to be on prime time every single week. So we're going to be able to scout the division on primetime games.
Yeah, I mean, you're probably going to see, let's see, so each team is probably going to get their 6 primetime games.
Potentially.
So you're going to see, 24 primetime games in the AFC West.
It's insane.
Yeah.
And some of those are going to be against each other.
Yes, exactly. And I think it starts week 1 with some big matchup, and we'll just roll all the way through the season.
I think Monday Night Football has to be some kind of AFC West game.
The classic
week.
Raiders and Broncos.
Yeah, and in fact, like just kind of thinking of how the schedule breaks, we know obviously the Rams are going to be at home Thursday night. I think the opening game is going to be Buffalo at the Rams. Because Buffalo, we're talking about the AFC West. Buffalo's sitting over there chilling as the other team that made a huge move and got Von Miller.
Yep.
And then also Von Miller with Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that just makes sense. But then Sunday night, I'll bet you Sunday night football opener will be Kansas City at Cincinnati. And then you get 2 teams from the AFC West. Either it could be Broncos Raiders, could be Broncos Chargers. I hope it's not Raiders Chargers. I'd like to see the Broncos on Monday Night Football, but
really quick, since you brought up Von Miller, did you guys hear his comments yesterday when being introduced as a Buffalo Bill?
Just about how he felt like he was breaking up with his girlfriend.
I think he wishes he re-signed with the Rams. It couldn't have been more obvious that that's what he wanted to do. Not the Broncos, the Rams. And just the money was too good with Buffalo. It was it was uncomfortable how he was being introduced to a great team with a great fan base, and how it just didn't really seem like he was all in.
Well, I
felt bad for the Bills.
Wasn't in the end his guarantee is like $500,000 more than Chandler Jones?
Is that what it was?
Because like Jones's was like $51 million, I think, and Vaughn was $51.5.
So petty. Not Vaughn, but just NFL players,
Yep.
and those contracts and agents.
It's like if I'm gonna go play in Western New York, I got to get paid.
Yeah, and he did. Good for him.
It's going to be a culture shock for Von there.
Yes.
Yeah, it is.
Because even Denver at least is a big city. Mm-hmm. And I guess he's within reach of New York City, and that's probably how he sold it to himself.
It's still a flight.
Yes, it is. Von Miller's not road tripping to New York City, probably.
Yes.
It is still a flight, but it's a quick flight. It's a really quick flight.
Yeah.
Buffalo is the 53rd ranked television market in the country.
So Vaughn goes from Denver, which was probably a little bit of a culture shock originally coming from Texas.
Yeah.
But he gets really used to that. He goes to L.A., which is a place he was very familiar with, spent a lot of time there. And now he goes to Orchard Park.
Yeah. These are the markets bigger than Buffalo, by the way. This is what Vaughn's getting to. Markets bigger than Buffalo. Albuquerque. Greensboro,
Yikes.
Norfolk,
Yikes.
Birmingham, Jacksonville,
Oh, no.
Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Think about it this way. How much of a house is Von Miller
Yeah.
going to be able to buy there
Oh.
with that money? I mean, he may be literally buying the stadium.
Club 40, I guess is what they would call it now.
Right? Yep.
Yeah, that's going to be crazy. And I liked what you said, Zach. Von Miller kind of like personally retired 58. That's just a Broncos number.
Yeah, isn't that kind of cool?
It is kind of cool.
Yeah, and that's why, if he's a first ballot Hall of Famer, Von's retired it in his mind. Broncos should retire it too.
Yes. First, they got to get 24 off the board.
Yeah, yes, they do.
Do you think they'll issue 58?
No. Remember, Champ Bailey's wasn't issued out until
Pac-Man.
Pac-Man Jones, which is it is literally a stain on the Broncos.
It is.
That was a massive L.
Worst thing that happened in the Vance Joseph era, I think.
At least from like a symbolic standpoint,
historically.
it really is.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of how like Mel Tucker tried to unretire Whizzer White's 24 and give it to a prospect, and then of course he left, and thankfully the Buffs were like, actually you can't have that number, and now he's gone.
Well, Frank Tripucka's number, the Broncos briefly tried to get that before Peyton Manning, I mean.
Really?
Back in the mid-2000s, there was an off-season receiver, I believe his name was Grant Matos, who wore number 18 because there was research going on, and there was a couple of months where nobody was sure that Tripucka's number had actually been retired until
They didn't have the billboards up.
right until it was dug up that yes, the owners at the time in 1963 did retire Frank.
Were you on
Tripucka's
that
number.
research team?
I was indirectly. I was not doing the guts of it, but I was in the conversations
Okay, all right,
about
that's
it
awesome.
because my general thought was when it's just a number, it's off season. Let's just keep it retired. Let's just keep it retired.
Yeah, I mean, my take is don't retire any numbers, but
So you're like the Raiders.
Eventually we're gonna run out. Like, if we expect the world to keep going, eventually we're gonna run out of numbers.
No, we just go triple digits
Oh my gosh.
please, no.
Or-
KJ Hamler wearing 101.
or 0 thing like 08.
Oh, that's
no,
so bad.
that's bad. That's
so
really bad. For you being all about the swoosh and the looks and the crispness, Mace, 08 is about as bad as it gets.
I'm just saying there are solutions.
Zero's not allowed, is it?
I don't
want
want to see Beef Supreme wearing 08 in 2055. Yeah, I don't know. I'm out. The problem is the standards that we're going to. The goalposts are going to move on retiring numbers because we're going to start running out of numbers, and people are going to be like, oh, well, you have to be like a unanimous first ballot Hall of Famer.
But here's
or
the
something.
thing. I mean, how in the regular season, how large is your roster? I mean, even if you have injured guys, it's never
60.
more than what, like 7, like
I guess you got the practice squad.
yeah, the practice squads are bigger now, but even with injured guys, it's never more than about 80, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so right now you have, because you don't have 0, you got 1 to 99, so you have 99 numbers. As long as you
100, because you get double 0, I think.
is it,
No,
not anymore, not anymore.
Oh, you can't? Not
No,
anymore?
not the last 00 was I believe Ken Burrow for the late Ken Burrow for the Oilers.
Impressive.
So, and then Jim Otto before that, the Raiders. But you can just double up in training camp, right? I mean,
Yes, you
remember
could.
when the Bears were here a couple
Oh,
of years ago, and you look at their roster, and the Bears have like 11 guys doubling up
Yes.
on offensive because they've retired like 16 numbers.
Yes.
It works. They make it work.
Yeah. I don't know. My thing is like the best players wear the best numbers, and then we're going to lose all the best numbers. Like 24 is an amazing number. I think because of the standards that we have for retiring numbers, the Broncos should retire 24.
Yes.
But now, like, that's in my opinion, the best number for a player in the secondary. So that's gone. And like over time, all of a sudden you're going to have like your corners wearing 49.
See, I think the best numbers for the secondary are what we're seeing now with like Pat Surtain wearing number 2.
That's nice.
Now that we have single digits involved,
It's true. More
like,
options.
receivers and defensive backs are great single digit players.
Agree. All right,
see,
we have run super long here.
Here's the thing, though. Champ's number wouldn't be retired with our standards.
First ballot Hall of
First
Famer.
ballot Hall of Fame.
Oh, you're right. You're right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And Vaughn, I think, after last year, he's first ballot Hall of Fame. Actually, shoot, like Vaughn, you think it hasn't gone through Von Miller's mind though that man, What if I win a Super Bowl with 3 different teams?
First player ever.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course
As
it's
a
gone through his
star
mind.
with 3 different teams.
Yeah.
Nobody's done that.
Nope.
Yep.
Something that people have done, come to the DNVR bar, which you should be doing right now. Tell your boss to screw off.
Maybe don't
pack
say
your
that.
things up.
Yeah, don't say
Quit
that.
your job.
No, please
and come
don't
down
do
to
that.
the DNVR bar
You
right
just
now.
say you're working remote for a day.
I like that.
Yeah,
You
you
can. I believe the new term for that is WFH, working
Yeah.
from home.
Oh, is that what you tell your boss?
Yes, yes. WF DNVR, work from DNVR. Come on down.
Say
Breakfast is being-
WFT and work for WFH.
Yeah, exactly. You can work from here. You can get some beers from here. You can get some breakfast. So come hang out. We'll be here all night. I'm so dialed in on March Madness, I didn't even realize it's also a double Denver sports night with Avs and Nuggets in action. So we're going to have March Madness, Avs, and Nuggets all on the TVs tonight. It's going to be very intense here, and it's going to be awesome.
And you got to get in on all of that action over at DraftKings Sportsbook. Bet on the Nuggets, bet on the Avs, bet on the NCAA tournament, because if you put $5 on any team to win a game during the March Madness, you will get $200 in free bets if that team wins. That's right. All you have to do, new customers, put $5 on a team. If they win, you get $200 in free bets. And no better time than right now so that you can bet on all the games on Saturday, all the games on Sunday with those $200 in free bets. Now is the best time to get in over at DraftKings Sportsbook. So head to the App Store now, download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app now, and use promo code DNVR when you sign up in order to get this $5 to $200 in free bets offer. You win when your team wins. Must be 21 or older, Colorado only. New customers only. Minimum $5 deposit. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-522-4700.
Also, as if we need another sport, there's many more sports going on, including rugby, including the American Raptors over at Infinity Park. The American Raptors is a club composed of crossover athletes that just ended their first season at 5-5. These are athletes that come from other sports like basketball, football, baseball, track, and they're taking their athletic skills to the game of rugby with the point of upgrading the U.S. national rugby team's fortunes throughout the world. And the best thing about this is you can watch this team for free. That's right. You can watch the American Raptors for free. Head on over to AmericanRaptors.com. Grab your free ticket for the upcoming season. If you can't make the game, AmericanRaptors.com will stream it all on their website. And if you can't make the game and you want to read about it, you want to listen about it, listen to the DNVR Rugby podcast. You can read all the DNVR Rugby stuff, of course, at thednvr.com. Our guy Colton Strickler has it all covered. Those podcasts will teach you about the game of rugby as well. So if you want to learn about a new and fun sport, at least new to you, check out everything going on at DNVR Rugby and check out the American Raptors. Go to AmericanRaptors.com for tickets for the upcoming season.
And really quick, I noticed we got a lot of people tuning in live on Twitter. If you hop over to YouTube, you get a better stream. It helps us out more. Also, the chat is a lot more popping and a lot easier to get in on there. So do that. Hit us with a thumbs up when you're over there and subscribe. Turn on alerts because we're going live at just all different times during this crazy Broncos time. If you turn on alerts, you'll never miss us.
Yes, and once this crazy period ends, we'll be back to our normal noon slot. But like you said, Broncos are announcing press conferences, 50 minutes before they happen. We got to be able to move quickly around here. So
just like Russ again. You just keep talking about Russ.
love Russ. Anyways, we're talking about the AFC West. We're talking about this arms race that's going on. So why don't we rank every move made in the AFC West this offseason? Zach, I'm going to have you take us through the moves. And as we kind of roll along here, we can figure out what's one, what's two, and so on.
Okay, so let's just start. I'll go team by team. So the Broncos, Russell Wilson, Randy Gregory, DJ Jones. Those were their 3 big moves.
Right. Russell Wilson is the number 1 move in the division.
Without a doubt. And I think we kind of get that out of the way. And there's no debating that. He's the most important position, and he's the biggest upgrade.
Yeah, and that's the key thing is the upgrade part of it, because with all these other moves in the AFC West, we're talking about team like the Raiders were a playoff team last year.
Right.
The Chargers were right there at the cusp of it, and the Chiefs, of course, have Patrick Mahomes. Russell Wilson, of all these moves, there are a lot of wow moves, but Russell Wilson is still the only move that was transformative in turning a team from an also-ran to a contender.
And also, that's there was some metric, I think, put out there by Pro Football Focus that had the Broncos as making the most improvement of any team in the NFL this year. And you can just look at the Broncos being number 1, the Seahawks being the worst, to show you that it's all Russell Wilson.
Well, and it's hard to do this, but even if you were just to strip away the importance of the quarterback, Russell Wilson is still the best player that was added to the division, in my opinion.
Okay, well, let's talk about that, because let me read the other moves that were made by the other 3 teams, and we can rank them. The Chiefs, Justin Reed, that was their only move. They, by far, made the fewest big moves in the division. The Chargers, Khalil Mack, they traded for him. Signed J.C. Jackson. Those were their 2 big moves. And then the Raiders, trading for Davante Adams and signing Chandler Jones. So every team except the Chiefs made a massive trade and made a massive signing.
Davante Adams is number 2 for me. Now, I think we're going to find out just how much of an Aaron Rodgers product Davante Adams is. I'm not trying to say he's not an amazing receiver, but we've seen some really great receivers take a step back when they take a step back from a really great quarterback. So we'll see, but I think, to me, that is the second biggest move in the division.
And I disagree. I think that's the 3rd biggest move in the division, and I agree with you about the Aaron Rodgers effect. However, he couldn't have gone to a better quarterback than Derek Carr. Their chemistry is insane. I think the 2 years they played together at Fresno State, he averaged something like 120 catches, 1,400 yards, 14 touchdowns, just insane. He's going to not drop off from where he was with Aaron Rodgers, in my opinion. But my second best move in the division, you're not going to be surprised, Ryan. The Chargers getting J.C. Jackson, and the reason J.C. Jackson is above Davante Adams is they didn't have to trade a first and a second round pick for him. He was a free agent signing, and yes, they paid him a lot. I actually thought J.C. Jackson was going to get more, and I can't ignore that J.C. Jackson was my number 1 defensive free agent, and he went to the Chargers.
See, I'm not concerned with what they're giving up. I'm thinking about what's being brought in. I think the second biggest move, it's also the Chargers, but it's Khalil Mack.
That's so. I think that's just the name.
But it's him opposite Joey Bosa.
That's should be dangerous.
That's and that's why Chandler Jones then kind of slides in, if not maybe just a half tick behind Davante Adams, because it's not just Chandler Jones, it's Chandler Jones along with Max Crosby.
Yeah.
Like and if there's one thing that kind of concerns you right now, it's looking at the Chargers and looking at the Raiders and saying, okay, these guys imported edge rushers who maybe aren't what they were several years ago, but still have much more than enough to capitalize off the attention given to Max Crosby and Joey Bosa, guys being in their prime. Those edge rushing combos look very much like Von Miller, DeMarcus Ware, circa 2015.
Yeah, I was thinking about this too, and it kind of goes into this conversation. I think Evero has the most pressure on him of any coach/coordinator in the division, because all that happened was everyone's offense got better around you, and the Broncos already had a really good defense. The people here are used to seeing the Broncos hold these teams under 30 points. Mm-hmm. If all of a sudden they take a step back and, the Raiders and Chargers are putting up 30 points on the Broncos' head, he's going to be on the hot seat quick, at least from a public perception standpoint.
It's a really good point, and it's crazy to think.
And the Broncos have the worst pass rush in the division.
I was just going to say, it's crazy to think that that Bradley Chubb and Randy Gregory, the talents and the investment that the Broncos have in them, are on paper, I would say the 3rd worst outside pass rush. I guess the 3rd best. The 2nd worst. I would say they have a better outside pass rush than the Chiefs.
Yeah. I'm just thinking of a pass rush duo. So you have Chris Jones and Frank Clark.
Yeah. Yeah, in terms of the duos, they are the worst. Yeah. And that is crazy because they are very talented.
Yeah.
So I love how we all have different number 2 moves. You've got Davante Adams. I've got J.C. Jackson. You've got Khalil Mack. Mace, who do you have as 3rd then?
3rd is Davante Adams.
And I'm right there with you. Davante Adams. He is... it's so hard to strip away the importance of position. He's really freaking good. He's probably up there in the conversation with Russ in terms of, like, the best... And Russ is still ahead. I agree. But in terms of the talent he brings and the fact that I don't think there's going to be a drop-off between Adams and Rodgers and Adams and Carr makes it the third best, including what they gave up to pay him or give him. That contract, though, is nuts.
You're stressing the safeties with Davante Adams joining Darren Waller and Hunter Renfrow.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's what I look at. Somebody's going to be one-on-one.
Yep.
And all three of those guys one-on-one will win
Right.
against almost anybody. So it's not even just he throws to the open man. He just throws to the guy that's in one-on-one that doesn't have safety.
Yeah, it's going to be really difficult, and you just think about how crazy that group would have been if they could have kept Henry Ruggs.
Yeah, seriously.
But
Then they may have not made that move. For
it's
Adams.
true. It's true. I don't know. I just think the way that Derek Carr loves him and the way that they get along, apparently Davante Adams moved in right next to him.
$12 million home.
Yeah, so that one's is a scary one. For me, I guess I'm really liking what the Raiders do. For me, third is Chandler Jones.
Yeah.
I think Chandler Jones was the best available pass rusher in terms of what he provides right now.
Yep.
And you put him with Max Crosby, who has been really productive without having that help on the other side. Second-team All-Pro last year. Yeah, second-team All-Pro last year.
$20 million player now.
The guy I wanted the Broncos to take in terms of that, so I have to give them kind of a nod there. And give them credit for that.
Yeah, and I mean, I think Chandler Jones on my defensive board was number 2, and so I have to go Chandler Jones Ryan, I'm sorry, you get to go your fourth now.
Okay, fourth would be J.C. Jackson.
Okay.
I mean, just
What, did you kind of say something good about the Chargers?
fourth is the same place they're going to be in the division.
He's not on the podium, so.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I really like J.C. Jackson. He was the guy I wanted most for the Broncos here of any free agent. I think he's really good. They did also pay a ton for him, but he's a really good player. I don't think he's going to have the direct impact that the other guys have. He's just going to take away one of the weapons. You know what I mean? Where you're going to see Chandler Jones racking up sacks and Davante Adams racking up touchdowns and Russell Wilson being Russell Wilson, he's going to have the least obvious impact.
I hope you're right, because he was a beast at picking off balls there in New England. I hope that slows down. For me, I'm going Chandler Jones for my fourth. The Raiders were doing nothing this offseason. In fact, it looked like they may lose Derek Carr for a little time being. There was a tiny bit of drama there. It looked like they were going to take a massive step back until this week. And then once free agency actually opened up, they said, don't worry, guys, we're here. And they made their moves. Unfortunately, I really like those two moves they made.
I've got J.C. Jackson fourth. And
so we all have the same top 4 at least.
basically, yeah. And the thing with the thing with Jackson is now I feel like they've got the secondary that can actually counter, for example, the Raiders as a whole. Now, Derwin James is a unique weapon back there at safety. The cost, yes, it's expensive, but now you look at the Chargers, and Brandon Staley has no excuse on defense. Okay, he is regarded as a wizard, right? I mean, despite the team being 9-8, despite the Chargers defense being subpar last year, he emerged from the season kind of being well thought of as a head coach, even though, frankly, I think their finish was underwhelming. Well, now, no excuses. And another thing, I know we like to take shots at the Chargers. It's fun, right? Used to do that about the Chiefs. You know, hey, the last time they made the Super Bowl, the Beatles were together. Said that a lot. And then it was true until it changed. And all this stuff is true about the Chargers and their history until it changes.
If it changes.
Who knows? And guys, so those are we've broken down the major moves. There's 3 more moves in the division that were all $10 million plus signings. 2 of them were the Broncos. We haven't talked about them yet. The other one, Justin Reed with the Chiefs.
We didn't rank Khalil Mack, I don't think, either.
Yeah.
Oh, you're right.
Because
Khalil. Okay.
Jones is 5th for me, and Mack is 5th for you guys.
Mack would be my 5th.
Yep.
So then now We've ranked all of the big moves except for 3. How much does it concern you that we're talking about Randy Gregory and DJ Jones being 2 of the 3, I don't want to say worst, least underwhelming, least impactful of the big-time signings in the AFC West?
I mean, you can't be too upset about it because those are just the smallest names. You know what I mean? Like
DJ Jones, certainly, yeah.
And they're the cheapest. So, you know.
Justin Reed also $10 million.
Yeah. So, I mean, Justin Reed is a 1-for-1 swap with Tyrann Mathieu. I'd rather have Honey Badger. So that's going to probably fall last for me. Randy Gregory, you know, I guess you could say you're swapping Von Miller for him if you want to go all the way back to mid last season, but not really. So, you know, I probably go Jones, Gregory, Reed in that order.
Okay. And I can follow that. Yeah, Reed doesn't do much for me at all.
He's a good player, but you lost a good player.
Yeah, you lost an even better player. Now, Reed may be better for what they're doing now for the future since he's only 25 years old compared to the Honey Badger. But for me, why I wish the Broncos would have got Chandler Jones instead of Gregory for this year. I wish they would have landed J.C. Jackson. But in the end, guys, you take a step back. The Broncos got the unanimous number one player this year at the most important position. So it made a little sense that they wouldn't get the second and third best as well.
Totally.
Yeah, it's sort of like a snake draft. The Broncos got the first pick,
Right.
and then they kind of get they're getting
to wait their turn. Yeah.
But I'd say Reed's at the bottom of that, and I'll go Gregory just because of the primacy of the edge rush position, and then DJ Jones.
And Gregory is the biggest roll of the dice. Could be the guy and end up being one of the better signings of this class. Or it could end up looking like they made a huge mistake not just ponying up the extra money for Chandler Jones.
There's a big gap from 5 to 6 here.
Yeah.
If we're making this, and again, Gregory was among the best in terms of pressure rate last year, but you're concerned about if there's a relapse with his substance abuse issues. I mean, that's something that he's going to be battling in some form or fashion the rest of his life.
Yep.
That he's going to have to deal with. And then he also has an injury history too.
Yep.
Missed some time last year, had a hamstring injury early in his career. And if the best ability is availability, unfortunately Randy Gregory has not proven that he can check off that box.
I have one more question about Randy Gregory, but first I want to tell you about our friends over at Green Mountain Dental Group. Check them out over there, just 15 minutes outside of downtown Denver in Lakewood. Family-owned dentistry, and when you schedule a cleaning, x-ray, and exam with our friends over at Green Mountain Dental Group, they're going to hook you up with a free Sonicare toothbrush. It's a great deal from some great people, true DNVR family members over there. They love Denver sports. They care about the DNVR community, so go see them if you need any dental work done over at Green Mountain Dental Group.
Love Green Mountain Dental Group. They're the best.
They are the best.
Just like this weekend. I mean, come on. March Madness coupled with the Broncos introducing Russell Wilson, coupled with Russ saying he's bringing 3 or 4 Super Bowls. Then the Broncos make 2 other big signings. You can't get any better.
All right. Speaking of the Broncos announcing signings, they haven't announced Randy Gregory has signed his contract yet.
They've announced Eric Tomlinson. They've announced Tom Compton. They've announced DJ Jones. They've announced the trade with Russell Wilson. Yet no, there has been no word. They agreed to terms with Randy Gregory 72 hours ago. Then nearly 48 hours ago, it became available where he could actually sign the contract, something that he certainly didn't do with the Dallas Cowboys. And it was believed, and I should say the word believed because it was never official, that yesterday we were going to meet Randy Gregory and DJ Jones at an introductory press conference. That didn't happen. We just met DJ Jones. There was a thought by some that could be today. It still could be today. That could still happen. But as of now, there's no word that Randy Gregory has signed his contract with the Broncos. And typically you don't worry about this until it's a couple days in. Now it's a couple of days in. And so you start wondering, but then you have to throw on the added fact of what went down with the Cowboys. Now, obviously, that same issue is not there because that language is not in his Broncos contract. But it does make you a little nervous, right?
It makes me a little nervous for sure. And then my other thought was, oh, maybe he's on vacation, just needs to fly into Denver and sign his contract. But then it was supposedly he went to dinner with George Payton and Nathaniel Hackett.
He
Supposedly, there's
posted a picture
there's
of
a
it.
picture of it on Instagram. Now,
Okay, so
I'll tell you
that
when.
happened.
I'll tell you when I'll worry if that picture gets deleted.
Oh,
That picture's still up.
yes.
Yikes.
Yeah.
The picture's still up, so that's why
Okay.
I'm not concerned.
What could possibly be going on, though?
Clearly,
Well, I mean, that's not bad.
Just some fine details in the contract, wanting to make sure that those are all perfect. Especially coming from the Cowboys, it seems like they have a very interesting way of doing contracts with Dallas. Maybe they're just trying to dot all their I's and cross all their T's with this Broncos contract. That's truly what I think is going on. I don't think this is going to get out of hand. But you have seen a handful of guys commit to a team and then back off this week.
Yeah, I'm about one notch away from panic mode, because you just saw this morning with the Bears no longer signing Larry Ogunjobi because he failed his physical. Obviously, we just mentioned Gregory has some injury history. Maybe the Broncos, maybe he failed his first physical, but the Broncos still really want him.
Right.
So they're saying, hey, let's wait a week and do another physical and see if, whatever it may be. I'm starting to worry. Because let's say the Broncos, for whatever reason, didn't sign Randy Gregory. Now it feels like they've really fallen behind in the arms race of signing players in the AFC West.
Yeah, really, because you talk about how that defense needs to stay elite and how they still need to add a cornerback or two and maybe a safety in order to be competitive. You lose that edge rusher. Now that's the biggest hole that you need. And instead of thinking about potentially going luxury pick with a cornerback in the second round, you almost have to use that second round pick on now a pass rusher.
I guess you could go get Zadarius Smith, who backed out of his contract with the Ravens.
Yeah. You could, absolutely.
Maybe that's the backup plan here.
Or maybe the Broncos are having a change of heart.
Maybe, because, yeah.
I mean, it could be anything. And I guess just to finish this free agency conversation, there are still, really good players available.
Yeah, there are. I mean,
Tons.
Maybe more than I ever remember this deep into free agency.
I mean, Field Yates put just a list out on Twitter in the last hour or so. Bobby Wagner, Taron Armstead, Tyrann Mathieu, Stephon Gilmore, OBJ, La'el Collins, who was visiting with the Bengals, Jarvis Landry, Zadarius Smith, Jameis Winston, Calais Campbell.
My question to you
market.
guys, though, is who makes sense for the Broncos? Because those are really big names, but who would actually make sense for Denver?
Collins, obviously, if you're going to go right tackle. Zadarius Smith, if something goes sideways with Randy Gregory. They're not going to spend – I don't think they're going to spend on off-ball linebacker. And so that's why I think even though a lot of fans would say, Bobby Wagner, I doubt that's happening. Frankly, I'd go with one of the defensive backs there. I'd go with Gilmore and Matthew.
Bringing in Tyrann Mathieu would be really exciting.
Imagine Honey Badger next to Justin Simmons back there for a second.
How much is he going to make?
Clearly not that much.
Yeah, we are in that second wave.
I mean, you'll have to restructure some contracts because right now the Broncos are at based on the contracts that are done, and I think this includes Randy. The projection of terms on Randy Gregory, unless it changes. If Gregory is there, they have about $7 million cap space, according over the cap.
Is that including what they need to save for the season and for
That's
also the draft?
no,
cap,
that's included.
cap?
That's just $7 million of space.
Just
that includes
purely.
the pure space.
So then, in order to make any other big moves, you do have to restructure, which you absolutely can.
Yep.
Yeah, and probably the most likely, and it's just converting. It'd be converting salary to bonuses. Would be guys like Garrett Bowles and Justin Simmons.
Which those guys will.
They would do because they're still going to get their money.
Yep.
In that
course.
case.
Give me one of them. Someone. Tyrann Mathieu,
Another
Stephon
splash.
Gilmore. Lyle Collins would be probably my favorite of all those.
Yep. Cincinnati can't let him leave the building today. As much as I hope that he leaves the building so that the Broncos can be involved, and there have been some rumors out there that the Broncos are interested, Cincinnati's got to pay him whatever. You have to protect Joe Burrow.
They really do. It'll be interesting to see what happens there.
And of
Armstead
course,
will still be around.
And of course, Collins is from LSU. He wasn't a teammate of Joe Burrow's, but Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase are going to turn the screws a little bit on him.
Right.
To say, hey, we buy you Bengals, we stick together.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I guess the one I would love to see Bobby Wagner in Denver. Doesn't sound like it's likely, but I hope Russ keeps pitching his guy George Payton on bringing Bobby Wagner here.
That would be a huge move in terms of keeping the defense great.
Yep.
That would be it right there.
Then go bring back Callahan, bring back Kareem Jackson. The defense is done.
Yep, there you go. And between those other two guys, you spent $5 million.
Yep. All right, a couple super chats here to wrap things up. First from Chris Medina says, "Hey y'all, what? Oh, have you heard anything about Randy Gregory and why he hasn't officially signed? Been introduced even though he is in town. Only time will tell."
Yeah, only time will tell. And what you really hope is that we're talking to him in 2 hours, because that means it's official. That means it's all done, and we get to find out more of his story. If it goes through the weekend, if we're talking about this on Monday, guys, if he's not signed on Monday, this is the conversation.
Yep, for sure. Last one here from Seth Stewart says, "Longtime listener and now a member. Can't wait to hear we got him."
Yeah.
Love you guys. Love you too, Seth. And love everyone for tuning in. Hit us with a thumbs up on your way out of here. You can, of course, subscribe.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Oh, there we go.
we got him.
Yes! I thought we had some crickets in the background.
I know. I was like, what sound is he playing?
We love you, Seth. You've been awesome, and we're so pumped to have you.
Yes. All right. That is going to wrap it up for us today on the DNVR Broncos podcast. Thanks to everyone who tuned in. And, of course, we'll be back with you next week with hopefully more fun and exciting news. But no matter what, Russell Wilson will still be the Broncos quarterback.
Yes, he will.
That'd
What
be
a
great.
great time to be alive, baby.
See you guys.